Hi everyone, today we're going to refit the engine back into the RXS100. These are the steps we're going to take. First of all, we're going to get this engine and we're going to bolt it into the frame. Once it's bolted in nice and tight, we're going to do the electrics, reconnect them. We're going to refit the carburetor, which is down here. We're going to fit the oil tank back into its place. We're going to get the chain back on. We're going to connect the hose. The hoses up which go from the oil tank to the engine. We're going to reconnect the carburetor. There it is. We're going to reconnect the cable to the oil pump and set that up. We've got the rev counter cable to do as well, the fuel tank to go on, and then basically start it. That is the plan. Okay, for the next step then, putting the engine in, we need to get these footrests and rotate them properly forward. You're going to find it easier to disconnect your rear brake because otherwise, as you rotate the footrest forward, it pushes on the brake lever. I'm going to lift the engine in from the right hand side. I'm going to make sure that the clutch cable and the electrics are not in the way. And it's a little bit tricky. You have to feed the engine through. You're going to lift it. You're going to just lift it in so that the engine is slightly nose high. And then you need to drop the back of the engine in first, right the way back, and we're nearly in. There we go, we're about home and dry there. So the next step is to bolt the engine in. There's a bolt goes in there, but we're going to put that in from the other side. There's a bolt round here which goes in from the other side, and there's one under here. So we'll put this one in under here. You can see that should just push through, make sure it's nicely greased. That's got a capsulated nut on the other side, so you just have to get your 14mm socket and put that one in. The one at the front just here. That, if it doesn't go in, you just have to lift the cooling fin slightly, just to lift the front of the engine to take a touch of weight off, like I did then. And then the one at the back is above the engine oil filler to the right hand side of the rear brake switch. Just push that in. Both the top ones require nuts on the other side, and like I say, the bottom one's got a capsulated nut. I'll tighten those up and come back to you with the next step. And we're going to refit the chain since we're round this side anyway. So you can't see me because I'm just out of view, but I'm just threading the chain over the rear sprocket. Since the last little clip, I have now put the bike onto axle stands underneath the footrests. And basically I'm going to just feed the chain over the sprocket at the front and bring it round. A little bit fiddly. Right, and that's through. And we'll bring that under and we'll reconnect it. I'll do that in a second. I'm sure you can. You'll know how to reconnect it because you disconnected it. We'll have also, whilst we're on this side, we're going to reconnect the electrics. So follow the position of the original loom and feed that up and plug that in. And we're also going to have a look at fitting the carburetor as well. Refitting the carburetor then. In fact, before we refit the carburetor, we'll reconnect this hose here for this YEISS system. So that just goes straight onto the reed valve block, and then you can just get your spanners on the clip at the, not the spanners, the pliers on the clip at the back, and bring that down so it's nice and secure. Make sure you put your hose clip on. You're going to find it easier to put the back of the carburetor into the little hose which connects to the airbox, and then feed the front of the carburetor into the reed block. It can be a little bit awkward. There we go, that's not too bad. And then obviously we're going to tighten up those Jubilee clips. We'll refit the plunger into the carburetor. Note that on the carburetor slide here, or a plunger, whatever you want to call it, there's a slot cut in one side and then just a slot which isn't so deep in the other side. The side with the long slot wants to go on the right hand side, and with the small slot on your side, and it wants to go all the way in. If it doesn't go all the way down, then you need to fiddle around with it. That will tighten up nicely. Oops. Putting the oil container back in then, so we're going to reconnect the hose onto the bottom of the oil container. Oh, a little bit fiddly. There it is. And if there's a clip, which there always should be, make sure you reattach that as well. There we go. You can then mount that back into the bottom where it mounts, and it pushes in the top there. And don't forget to reconnect the electrics as well for that, which just warns you if your oil level's low. So that's that there, and then you can reroute your overflow, and then we'll refill that. What I will say to you is that this is not ready for the bike to use this two-stroke oil yet. The system has to be bled and purged of any air. So I will go into a little bit of detail about that later on. I might even do a separate video. We're back on the right hand side of the bike now. We're going to reconnect the rev counter cable. It's important you do this before you start connecting up the cable which operates the two-stroke oil pump, because you can't connect this in afterwards. So that just goes nicely into there, and a little screw just holds it in place. So this is the cable here which operates the oil pump. So that's going to go through the hole there, and then we're just going to thread that through. Just thread it into the casing even. We're going to keep screwing this in until the little nut here pretty much sits flush with the casing. And then what we're going to do is we're going to reconnect the cable onto the front of the pump. So I'll move the camera a bit closer. Hopefully you can see that there. This cable wants to go around the back side of the pump, and then you have to move the pump manually. You have to grab hold of the little pulley wheel and then reconnect the cable, the little lead end, into the locating section, which is a little bit fiddly, and then you can let go. Don't forget to reattach the little clip, this little clip here, and that holds the cable in place. You'll see the little clip in place now. Whilst we're working on the oil pump, we should undo this small screw, and what this does is this allows the air to bleed out of the oil pump and allows the oil to come down the hose. You can probably see it coming down the hose here. So this is bleeding the hose and the pump of air. In a moment we'll see oil coming out of the pump, and that's when we're just going to re-screw this in. Takes a few seconds, 5 or 10 seconds or so, maybe a little longer. Oh, there she goes, and we'll re-screw that in. So that's the pump bled. Sorry, not the pump. That's even the hose to the pump bled. We have to bleed the pump and the hose which comes back up to the carburettor here, and this is the little hose which connects onto that part of the carburettor. So I'll reconnect that in a moment. I'll push that on and put the little clip on too. The next step with the oil pump is to ensure that the small indentation mark on the pulley wheel is marked up precisely, lined up precisely with the dowel, this little dowel here. If it's not lined up, then you screw this in and out here. You'll work it out. You just undo this top bit and screw it in and out, and then lock it up appropriately until the alignment is correct. If you don't get the alignment correct, then you could be oversupplying or undersupplying oil to the engine. We'll come back to the next step to do with bleeding this system in a little while once the engine's running. We're going to refit the exhaust now. you'll have to thread it back in the way you unthreaded it. Kind of curls round a little bit, and whoops, probably as well putting in the back mounting bolt first, just loose, don't tighten it at all, and then you can reconnect it up on the header. Remember to put a new sealing ring on the barrel to get a good seal, and yeah, basically do those back up. Don't forget to put the one underneath on. So I'll come back to you in a minute. Right, we're nearing the end of this, everyone. I've put the kickstart on from the other bike. I've connected the clutch cable. I've put a fresh spark plug in. These are things you don't need to see. I'm sure you can work them out yourself. I've put the gear change on, but that's not really relevant to the starting of it. The last thing I need to do is put the fuel tank on, but I'm not going to put it on just yet because I'm going to put this on here, which is a remote fuel tank, because it's really important that I don't run this little two-stroke engine on petrol without oil in it, and I still need to bleed between the oil pump and the carburettor. So I will get the bike so the exhaust is outside, and I'll come back to you in a moment. Okay, this is hopefully the last step. So the remote fuel tank is fitted with 50:1 fuel oil ratio going into the carburettor. Ignition's on, choke's on. This is the first time this engine's run in about 6 years. I reckon it's going to be 3 kicks maximum. Right, I hope you can hear me, folks. That was good, wasn't it? Nearly went on 2, but it went on 3. This is the little pipe which comes out of the oil pump, and it goes up to the carburettor, which delivers the oil. I'll pull it off a minute, and you'll hear the engine revs increase because it's now sucking in air. If I manually operate the little pulley at the front of the pump so it's on maximum, you'll see now it's starting to push oil out of the little hose there. Just because it's pushing oil doesn't mean it's fully bled. So it's important that I just keep it on maximum for like a couple of minutes. I can wipe the oil up afterwards. But I really don't want this engine to run without any two-stroke in it. So I'll turn it off so I'm not shouting over the engine. So we're kind of at the end of it, really. What I'll do in a couple of minutes is I'll refit the fuel tank, and then I'll probably just take it for a little ride up the road. So there we go. I hope you've enjoyed these videos. Please hit the like button, leave a comment, and it'd be awesome if you could subscribe. Thanks very much.